Hi Sue Farm, Chidi here, and you're welcome to another interesting tutorial. In this tutorial, I'll be sharing with you how I made this gorgeous shift dress that you can see on the screen. It's a box fitted dress with fringes, okay, and this bias velvet tape. Yeah, the first time I saw this design or this style, I said to myself, this will really be very easy to make, not until I wanted to make this dress. Now, when it was time to make it, I now understood that I require a lot of planning and organization to be able to put this dress together to achieve what you can see on the screen. If this sounds like what you've been interested in knowing, because it really requires a lot of professionalism and planning to put this together, as simple as it looks, and if this sounds interesting to you to know how I cut it and also put it together, that is sewing it, then you have to stick around till the end. Do not cut any part of this video to see every part of this beautiful tutorial. Come with me as I show you how. So here I have my pattern already drafted. The pattern is a basic torso foundation. Here is the back pattern, and this is the fabric I'll be using for this project. This is the back pattern. That is the waistline. I did my back tightening and I did my waist measurement divided by 4 plus ½ inch that intake, and that is the neckline. Okay, and that is the knee length of this gown. Now this is the front pattern. You can see the side dart because I'll be using side dart for this very dress, and on the side dart I will not be taking it exactly the way I drafted it in this tutorial. Now I'll be taking 3/4 inch on both sides of this line that I'm pointing at now. I'll take 3/4 inch here and 3/4 inch above it, okay, and then wedge it to 1 inch before the bust point. Just watch and you see every bit of what I did. And here is the waist measurement divided by 4 plus ½ inch darts. That is what I used for the waist measurement. Yes, and here I'm dropping the neck by 1½ inches and then 1 inch by the side of the neck, and I'm connecting it with my pattern master, the armhole curve part of my pattern master. Now after drafting this neckline, I'll just go ahead and cut out the front pattern. Watch closely to see every bit of the step I took to make this beautiful gown. It's really an interesting one and you will not want to miss any part of it. If you've not subscribed to my channel, guys, before I continue with what I'm saying, you can take it straight from the hip line. That is what I was pointing there, okay? From your hip, you can take it straight down to the knee line, or you can curve it by 1 inch towards the knee, just as I did. Now this is the back pattern and I'll be cutting it out. I just came in here by 1 inch and I'm connecting it to the neckline like so. I did not drop the back neck further. The drop there is the one I dropped initially, which is just 1 inch. Now I'll go ahead to cut out the back pattern. Just do yours as you can see me do. When you get to the hip, you can take it straight and not curve it the way I curved it. Now this is the back length because it's a bit shorter than the front length because of course side bust that. If you want to know how I made this basic torso foundation, you'll be looking at the description box to see the link there for the basic torso foundation. I'll also be linking up every other tutorial I know will be relevant to this very tutorial, yes, so that you may find it important or necessary, just in case you find it necessary to look at them. So having done this, I will just go ahead and fold my fabric appropriately. You can see how I folded it. I did not fold it the regular way you will fold an Ankara fabric. I am folding it just the way I'm pointing. Yes, look at the tip of the Ankara fabric and you will understand very well how I am folding this fabric. Now I folded it into 2 at first and I noticed that I will be wasting a lot of fabric, and I then decided to reduce the fold. Yes, that was what I did. Sorry for the noise in the background. It's really what is beyond me. I'm really sorry about that. I don't know, some construction work is going on around me here. I really hope it doesn't disturb so much of this video. So here I have given like 2 inches from that fold line, and I have placed my pattern and pinned it down as well. This is how you're going to do yours to achieve exactly what I achieved. This gown is so beautiful. My client was so happy when she fitted it. The gown is just lovely, just gorgeous. Now I'm just ensuring that it's 2 inches all through that I took at that center front fold. Now I'll just go ahead and mark 3/4 inch all through the side of this pattern. This 3/4 inch marks is not the sewing allowance, it's just the ease, because this is a box fitted dress, it's a shift dress, so it's not a dress that is on the body. It's a dress that gives a little allowance, not so much, but yeah, it gives ease to the person wearing it. Yes. And here I'm just taking the measurements of my full gown length, which is 61 inches. That is 61 inches mark there. I am ruling across with my pattern master. I'm ruling a line across there. I'll go ahead and cut out. Now I moved my hand a bit away from this marking. That is like 1.5 inches away, and that will serve as the hemming allowance. Having done that, I'm cutting out the neck, and the shoulder is 1/2 inch allowance for the seam, and the armhole is 1/2 inch. And here I'm adding extra for my seam allowance. As I said, the first marking I made was the ease. It's actually the ease of the dress, not allowance. Now I'm using my tape to ensure that it is 1.5 inches, because that is the allowance I want to take for this very dress. I'm just ensuring it's 1.5, and yes, I'm trimming off any excess of 1.5 there. Now, having done that, I'll be taking my hand straight up to the hem of the dress for this front pattern, just as you can see. I'll go ahead and put my notches. I've put the notch for my zipper allowance, and then I will also mark 2 inches there, because that is my zipper allowance, and I will be notching it as well. I will also go ahead to open up the center front, because it's going to be open. It's going to have a zip and also a slip towards the ending part of this gown. And this is what I have. I'm just marking my dart intake. Just as I said, I'll take it straight on and then wedge it to 1 inch before bust point. Yeah, I'm going ahead to mark to notch my allowances where my sewing allowance started. I will also go ahead to notch the waistline. And here I am notching the waistline and every other notch that is necessary in this pattern making. Now I'm just measuring from waist to the hem, so that I will use the same for the front, for the back rather, pattern making. Okay, I will keep aside the front and I will go ahead with the back pattern making. Here I've already folded my fabric. My fabric is on fold already as desired, so that I folded it like this so that I will get the length I need. I've said this before as I was cutting the front part. I will also go ahead to pin this back part appropriately, just as you can see me do. This is to avoid the pattern paper moving as I alter anything on the pattern. Here I'm measuring from that waist to the hem. I think it gave me about 46 1/4 inches or thereabouts. Okay, just measure yours and ensure that it's the same thing with your back measurements. Okay, your front waist to the hem. The waist to hem of the front should be the same with the waist to the hem of the back. Now I'm marking 3/4 inches all through the side, and this, just as the front, is the ease of this box fitted dress or shift dress. Now for the back, center back, I'll be taking 1.5 inches all through. Okay, this is the zipper allowance. By the side, I took 3/4 inch all through, and on the center back, I'm taking 1.5, which is the zipper allowance. Here I'm just measuring from fold just to get a straight line. Okay, that is just the essence. From my knee, I measured on fold down to the hem, because this way I will get a straight line. I just connected the markings, and yeah, that is it. Here I'm adding the seam allowance or the sewing allowance, and from this knee also I'll be measuring from that tip of the fabric just to get a straight line as well to the hem. Now this is straight line up to the hem, and that is it. I will now go ahead and cut out my pattern. Starting from the neck, I'm cutting through the shoulder to the armhole, and I cut all with 1/2 inch sewing allowance. And here is 1.5 inches sewing allowance to the hem. Yes. And on the zipper, I also took 1.5 inches. And I am going ahead to cut this out. Yes, that is just it. It's as simple as that. Easy breezy, right? So I'll just go ahead and notch the sewing allowances, the waistline. Everywhere that I need my notches, I ensure that I put it, because this is very important and makes the sewing process very easy and easy breezy. Yes. So I'll just go ahead here and mark 1.5 inches on both sides, which are the zipper allowance and the side seam allowance. And I also notched these points. And that is all for the back pattern. I will now be folding my lining. Now this is the process you're going to take step by step to achieve this beautiful gown. Now my lining is a pure cotton lining, and yes, I had to also fold it the same way I folded the fabric, though it's a shorter length of lining. But then, yeah, this way it gave me the length I wanted, but I did not cut this lining to the length of the gown. Watch closely. I removed some inches from the hem, and then I cut the gown. Yes. This is the back, and I'm also putting the notches, because the notches are important on both the lining and the fabric, because we'll also be sewing the lining differently. I'll be stitching lining to lining and fabric to fabric to give me that fine sweet finish after the dressmaking. And here I am cutting the front pattern. Having done this, I measured also where the lining ended for the back side, and I ensured that the front part of the lining also ended the same place. Yeah. And this is what I have. Now, having done this, the next thing I'm going to do is to put the notches as appropriate. I'll put the notches so that the notches will be both on the lining and also on the fabric. Just as I said, I'll be stitching lining to lining and fabric to fabric, and these notches are so important to the sewing of this beautiful, gorgeous dress. Now this is the sleeve. I've already cut it. I always cut the sleeve pattern with the back pattern. I have showed in some of my tutorials my master pattern that I made with a back pattern, and at the point of fixing it to the dress, I always trim down the front part of the sleeve. I can be linking this up. In fact, I will link it up in the description box so that you know how to make your sleeve basic pattern. I had to cut all this off so that the tutorial, the video will not be too long. It's already too long, but then so that it will not be longer than it already is. Okay, now I have cut the lining of the sleeve, and this is what I have. I will go ahead and notch also the cap, the middle of the cap, and the rest of the place that I need to notch. Now, having said that, this is the lining and the fabric ready for sewing. Not completely ready because I'll be applying interfacing on the neckline, just like a facing, and also hairstay on the fabric. Yes, to give it more structure and beauty, to make it richer. Now, this is where I'll be stopping the hairstay when I apply it, like 2 to 2.5 inches from the waistline downwards. Okay, so it will start from the shoulder till I pass the waistline by 2.5 inches. Here I have applied the hairstay. As you can see, I'll just go ahead and trim off every excess on this hairstay. And yes, this is what I have. And this is the sleeve. I did not apply anything on the sleeve. And this is the back pattern. I will trim off any excess on this back pattern, of course, just as you can see. This came out very lovely, as you can see. And here I have the lining pieces, and you can see how I applied the interfacing on the neckline. Now, this interfacing is dropping very well at the center front because of the opening that will be at the center front. That is a way of structuring that opening at the center front. You will understand as we progress. And here I have my fringes that I'll be using on the front part of this, and also the velvet bias tape. Yes, velvet tape trimming here. So I will go ahead now and start off the stitching of this dress. I will start with the dart, which I will stitch using the notches and stop 1 inch before the bust point. Yes, I have stitched my dart here, and I've gone ahead to iron it out. Now, the next thing to do is to go ahead and apply my velvet tape. Now I'm going to pin it down, ensuring it's 2 inches away from the center front. I will pin it down all through to the hem of the dress. Ensure you don't miss any part of this tutorial so that you will understand completely what I did. Now I just took 2 inches all through and ensured that I pinned it down all through. I'll be stitching both ends, both sides of the bias tape to keep it steady and fine. Stitch to the end towards the tip, like, I know you understand what I mean, so that the tape will lay flat and beautiful for you after stitching. I've stitched it down here. I'll just go ahead and also stitch the second part of this front pattern, and this is what I have. I've ironed it out, and this is what I have at the end of the stitching. I've also unpinned every pin that is on it. So right now I will go ahead and make use of my fringes. Watch closely what I'm doing. I'm just taking the measurements of where I want the fringe to be. On the shoulder, I used 3 inches length of fringe, and I made it double. So I folded it into 2 like so, which means when I open it up it's 6 inches, but then I will fold it into 2 to give me a double, feeling, to give fullness. That is why I doubled it. So I'm measuring 6 inches and I'll be cutting it there. I will measure 6 inches again till I get the amount I need. But now I am doubling it like so, and I'll be placing it on the shoulder because one of the fringes is on the shoulder. I will pin it down and stitch it down thoroughly. Now I'll go ahead and stitch it down. After stitching it down, I will be applying my bias tape on it. Now the bias tape measurement is 3.5 inches. This is how I'll be pinning it and folding 1/4 inch on both ends of that fringe. I hope you understand, so that everything will lay beautiful and flat, more like the fringe is sandwiched into it. Watch closely to understand. And here, this is the fringe. I've already stitched it, and I'll go ahead and measure the amount of velvet tape that I need, but I actually used 3.5. The fringe is 3 inches in length, and this one is 3.5. So 1/4 inch on both ends to knit up the end of the bias tip. That is the velvet bias tip. Now what I have here is 3.5 inches. I'll fold in 1/4 inch here and 1/4 inch on the other end and stitch it down, and then stitch it round the square, the rectangle rather. Okay, now when I stitch it, it will just form like a cap for the fringe. This is looking really beautiful. Now I'm measuring 7.5 inches from the shoulder. Watch out where I'm measuring it from, and I'm measuring another 15 inches from that shoulder. I dropped by 1/2 inch from that shoulder to like start my measurements, meaning I omitted the shoulder seam allowance. I hope you understand. Now, having marked the points I want to do it, I will be cutting out another 6 inches, which I will fold into 2 to give me 3 inches, and I'll place it on the 7.5 inches mark from the shoulder line. And yes, I ensure this 1.5 inches away from the bias tape. I think 1/4 or 1.5, and I pinned it down. I will stitch it down and also apply the velvet bias tape just as I did for the one on the shoulder. Now this is what you will also do for the opposite side of the same front pattern. Okay, now I will also go ahead and do for the next fringe and also apply my bias tape. I will finish it up for the 2 sides, and this is what I have. You can see how lovely it is looking, well measured. Ensure you are very accurate with your measurements, very important. Now the next step in this tutorial is just to go ahead and stitch the neckline. Now I've stitched the neckline, notched and top stitched, and also ironed, and this is what I have. Okay, you can see how smooth it is coming out. And the next thing I did is to note where I want this front neckline opening to be, and I marked the point for the both sides of the front, and I had to notch that point, those points as well. Now after notching the points, I am going to open it up like so and turn it over like to the back side or the reverse of this cloth, and watch how I will be stitching it. Now this is how I will stitch on the seam allowance, like this and like that, like this and towards the center front. Now I'm going to go ahead and stitch it, then I'll show you. I've stitched it here and I'm trimming out the excess, and watch how I am notching this. Make sure you do this so that your cloth will come out very neat and fine. Now I'm going to top stitch. I will top stitch to that corner and then swift my hand and top stitch as much as I can towards the neckline. Now I've done the same thing for the 2 sides and I've ironed it out. I hope you understand. I top stitched both sides. Now you're going to open it up as I just did, and I'll be stitching from lining to lining and fabric to fabric. Just watch closely what I'm doing and you will understand. This is a lot of sewing technique, and you have to observe this for your clothes to come out neatly and fine. Now this is how I'm going to stitch it. I will stitch it, then I will show you. This is what I have, and watch how I am trimming this neck point. Ensure you do yours like this to reduce the bulk on that point. I don't want to reduce the seam allowance at that center front. I just had to angle it out at that neckline point. Now I'm going to open it up like this. You can see how the bias tape is looking already. It's really looking beautiful, and I'm really happy. At this point I was really happy with the outcome, okay, because this is part of the parts that gave me concern of how I am going to go about it to come out really neat, because I like my sewing to come out neat and seamless. Now I'm going to serge that point, and I've ironed it out already. You can see how that neckline opening is looking so lovely. Hope you love this sewing technique, and I hope you're going to try it out. Now the next thing I'm going to do is to stitch the sides. No, before I stitch the side, I'm going to apply zipper to this back. Yes, I've already turned the neck of this back, and I'll be applying zipper to it. Okay, Now I'm going to check where the zip will be, and then this is how I'm going to fix it. Lining to lining and fabric to fabric. Now I've closed up from the hip line where the zip will end to the hem, and this is how I apply the zipper on the fabric only. I've stitched it down on only the fabric, on the two sides of the fabric, just as you can see. I stitched it down only on the fabric, and I'll go ahead and iron it open and flat, and then the next step is to turn it over. This is how I'll place the tip of that zipper, and then go ahead and flip over my lining. I'll flip the lining like so, and then stitch it down till the end of the zip. I hope you understand. Now I'll stitch it down till the end of the zip. I'll do the same thing for the other side of the back, and that will give me a seamless look for the zipper area. Now this is what I'm going to do. Flip it over like so. I hope you understand, and I'm going to stitch all through, to the end of the zip. Now here I have stitched it down, and this is what I have. I will show you what I have here. Now this is the zip. You can see how neat it's looking, and you can see the reverse, how neat it is also looking. Now the next thing I will do is to close up the sides. Wow, guys, I was in a hurry when I was making this dress, but I just had to film it. Like, it was a very, very urgent clothes. So now this is what I did. I've already gone ahead to close up the shoulder, lining to lining and fabric to fabric. That is how I closed up the shoulder. I guess you saw when I was trying to point along the shoulder how to close it up. And the side too, I will close the fabric to fabric. I'm just marking where my pocket will be starting. From the waistline I marked 2.5 inches. That is what I marked there, and from this point I will also come down by about 7 to 7.5 inches, and that is it, the pocket opening. Now I am going to be stitching to that point, leave the pocket opening, and then start from after the pocket opening and stitch to the hem. Here I have done that, and what you can see is the pocket opening, just like so. Now the next thing I will do is to cut the pocket. This is the pieces I'll be using for the pocket. You can see how I folded it and folded again, because I want to get like 4 pieces at once. I wanted to start it here. I changed my mind and came up, and I gave 8.5 inches. You can use 9 inches at that pocket and 3, and I just measured my hand, the depth of my hand, and that is what I used here. And just marked out my pocket. As I said, I was in a hurry. Like, I was just being so fast with the whole dressmaking process, because my client needed it for the next day. This was done on a Saturday, and she needed it on Sunday. She was to come and pick up this clothes in no time, so I just had to hurry and also film at the same time. Now this is what I have. I had to just close up this part and then serge it. Here I've closed it up and serged it, and I will be fixing to the pocket and 3. Now watch how I'm going to fix it. In the allowance, I'm just going to fix it just 1/2 inch from the start of this allowance, okay? Just inside the allowance. Take 1/2 inch from there and stitch it down. And here I have already stitched it down, and my pocket is in place. I want to turn it inside out to show you what I have. I just stitched it within the allowance, just taking 1/2 inch on both sides, and it gave me a very seamless look. You can see the gown that it has come out so lovely. I'll just serge here and tack it down. I'll use hemming gum and then tack it down. This is what I got for that side, and this is my sleeve next to be worked on. Now what I'll do is to place this fringe on the sleeve. It's supposed to come out like this on the sleeve, but this is how I'm going to place it, right? And it's double as well, and I will be placing my lining like so. I will stitch it, and then I will top stitch. Great. After top stitching, I'll iron it down such that the fringe will be between the lining and the fabric pieces. Now after doing that, this is what I have stitched it down on the fabric, and I will be placing the lining on it. Now this is how you're going to do yours, so that everything will be easy and smooth at the end of the day. Now this is what I have. I want to close this up out, but if you don't want it to show, I mean the seam of the sleeve, you can close it lining to lining and fabric to fabric, but I don't want to do that for this very sleeve, so I decided to close it up like so, and then I serged it. Now this is the outcome of the sleeve. I will just go ahead and apply it. Now look at the sleeve closely, and you will see that the front part has been trimmed already. Watch closely and you will see how the front part is already in. I've trimmed it, and I will go ahead to fix it to the gown. And here is the outcome, and the next step is just to go ahead and iron it properly, and then place it on the mannequin for you all to see. And this is the outcome of this gorgeous gown. Do you like it? Are you gonna try it out? If you have not subscribed to my channel, Sifam, what are you waiting for? Go ahead and subscribe, and you will not be disappointed. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Give it a like, comment. This way I know what you think about the video, and I'm encouraged more. Thanks for watching, guys. I really appreciate and love you all. Try it out and let me know what your outcome is. I will of course see you in my next tutorial.